The This Week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update, where we finally come to the conclusion of our DEI Detective series. We are joined for this momentous television event by Senator Jill Carter. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thanks for having me. It's
We'll
great to be here.
jump right into the top.
Okay, let's
Two
do it.
stories. I heard a news tip, telling me
This is the broadcast you need to be watching for those kinds of things.
exactly, and someone reached out and they said I believe one of the department directors was at a DEI conference this June. And I was like, no, that didn't happen.
Not in our state.
How many times have you sit on the Senate floor and people talk about DEI? Now, personally, I think when you talk about Kelton, DEI makes a choice. I mean, essentially, all white dudes are awful. Well, all straight white dudes are awful, terrible. You've worked for nothing. You've just skated by in life, right? Kelton, you weren't out. There's no way you could have been out last night moving tables at 6 p.m. or up to this morning before everyone else went to work, working hard to chain with. You're just
Privileged.
a nepo baby, essentially, because you're white. Correct, Kelton?
I think that's the gist of it.
Scumbag is what I think. I think what they're calling you. And I have heard I've heard many people say this DEI is now what we need to do in state government.
Right.
I have heard Lieutenant Governor Kehoe say that. I have heard Senator Hawley, Senator Schmidt. I've heard Governor Parson.
I think it's a unanimous decision, right, within the
Well,
Republican Party.
it's not unanimous though.
Oh.
Au contraire.
Do
Let
tell.
me help you out. I decided we didn't want to tell the governor before we knew. So Kelton and I went on a quest. Kelton, can we call it a quest?
I think that's the
Let's call it a
appropriate
quest.
term.
So I thought, well, just because it's a quest doesn't mean it can't be fun, right?
Is that kind of like a workout? A quest?
For me, it would definitely be a quest,
like
especially with Matt Chin. Shout out to Matt. For Casey, a workout is actually an enjoyable morning, which is sick and
We're
depraved.
talking about that. But I think a quest could qualify. Just
For
saying.
me, it's a quest. For her, it's fun. So what I did was, if you've played Clue before, right? I
Yes.
decided just because we're doing work here, Kelton, it doesn't mean we can't have fun. So while we sunshine requested, and it was so funny. For most of the part, I probably had over half of the people. Someone in the department reached out to me and said, "Hey, my boss was not there. That wasn't us." Only to really sunshine request a couple. So I have the suspect, which would be the department director, the weapon, which would be DEI, and the room, which would be the department, right?
Yes.
So over the course of the last few weeks, we have investigated, just like Columbo might, and you might notice there's no Steinemnology Day. No, there's not. I have my Sheriff Dave Marshak Yeti he gave me because I'm doing detective work. And no, I've already got your text. I am not interested in being a full-time detective, just this one time.
But you're super good at it based on.
Well, I'm not bad.
Based
I
on
mean,
the
let's
clues,
be
I'm
honest
just
here.
saying.
So, Kelton, we are now ready to unveil who is the DEI director.
And
I'm
I
on
get
the
to be
edge of
here
my
for
seat.
this?
You get to be here for this. That's totally,
Okay.
yeah. That's why you get to be here for this monumental moment in television history. So, Kelton, it came down to the only two people we haven't chalked off the list yet is the Adjutant General of the National Guard and the Director of the Insurance Department.
Do tell me it's not National Guard.
Well, I'm going to show you a list of exhibits. So, Kelton, would you be so kind as to put up Exhibit 1? So it's on the screen here, and Kelton, can you put it up behind us so the senator can see? This would be a tweet from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. We're going to learn a lot more about the NAIC. One. This is a tweet of some of the speakers and saying, as you'll notice, the conference is stand up and speak out, essentially and happening now. So essentially they want you to stand up and say Kelton sucks, and he's never worked for anything in his life, and speak out and say we want him to essentially be out of the job, and we want someone else to have the job. So you might think, well, that's not a big deal, but Kelton, can we look at Exhibit 2, please?
Twitter is heavy digging.
Yeah, well, detective work comes in all forms. Look at the picture in the upper right-hand corner. That actually is, right above Missouri Cattleman hat, that actually is the director of the Missouri Department of Insurance at the thing. Now, you just think, well, maybe she was just there meeting this person, no big deal. Oh, no. Kelton, can we look at Exhibit 3, please, sir? Here we see the director speaking at the commission conference about DEI. Now, I know what you're thinking. No, for DEI.
Had to have been.
The fourth annual NAIC DEI conference. Stand up, speak out, say Kelton.
Against DEI.
And your son and Mike Parson and Mike Kehoe are all just scumbags that did nothing. They should be out of their job, and someone else who would fit into a McDonald's commercial should be in their spot, right? So I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, Scott, you just photoshopped that. You just did a computer thing. That's not real. There is no possible way on no planet could one of the directors of Mike Parsons' administration flip him off the bird right to his face, say, I don't have to do what you say. I'll do what I want. There's no way that could happen. I did a computer. Well, number one, I didn't because I'm not that good at computers. And number two, let me unveil the piece de la resistance of our detective work. Kelton, could you please fire up the next exhibit?
I can't wait.
I had to sunshine request this. This is the schedule from the director of insurance that I sunshine requested. DEI conference, Weston, Kansas City. DEI dinner, conference dinner. It is just a...
So the conference was in Kansas City?
Well, one of them. There's others that have been out of state. The conference here, Weston Center Hotel, DEI conference, 4th annual. Yeah, no kidding. So, I guess, Kelton, it's time. I guess we can take the marker out. We can clear the good name of the Missouri National Guard.
I knew it.
You did. You knew. And it looks as though we have, let's just take in here, check and check.
It needs to be a different color.
Yeah, you're right. This is the first time I've done a Clue detective game before. So, Kelton. He held out hope the whole time that it was no one. That no department director just totally goes rogue and doesn't care.
Well, because DEI doesn't exist in Missouri.
Well, they've had 4 conferences.
That's what we've been told on the Senate floor, right? There is no
I think
DEI.
someone lied to you on the Senate floor.
Yeah.
I think, it kind of exists right here. And you can't have a 4th annual conference without the first 3. Am I right? Kelton, can you do the math on that real quick? Let's fact check that.
The math checks out.
Okay, it checks out. So now, what happens? I did a little more digging because, that's what would Columbo have done in this situation? He would say, oh, just one more question.
It was the cup.
Oh, the cup helped. I'll be honest with you, I was expired by my Sheriff Dave Marshak. Yeta, he got me. Kelton, could you please fire up the next exhibit? Not only is there 4 conferences, Missouri, the department director, actually received the 2023 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Trailblazer Award at the Bermuda Risk Summit. So you go to Bermuda, the Missouri Insurance Commissioner, I'm not shitting you, goes to Bermuda, I guess, I don't know, to get the 2023 DEI award. Yes, I know. The look on your face says it all.
I'm only one of 34,
But you're a senator, so it matters.
But I do think that it matters.
So my question to you, after seeing this unfortunate series of exhibits done by 2 of the best DEI, I'm going to put my Sherlock Holmes pipe in, 2 of the best DEI detectives. We might be the only DEI detectives in Missouri.
I doubt there's many floating around.
I'm going to say I agree with you, Watson. Hypothetically speaking, it is a law that says the new governor has to appoint an insurance commissioner, that you serve at the pleasure of the governor until there's a new governor. This person was appointed by Eric Greitens. I think she knew somebody in Indiana or something. There was a time when all the right-wing kiss-asses loved Indiana, right? Because that's where Pence is from before they all turned on him. Now, being from Indiana, not good. So I guess my question would be, how eager would you be to confirm someone to run this department until you find out what the hell is going on over there?
Well, it would be, I think that this is a problem.
Seemed to be a problem to me.
So,
if Mike Kehoe, say what you want about him. He says what he means what he says. He says he's getting rid of all this stuff.
I would applaud
think he means it. Well, I guess we'll see if he means it, right?
No, we'll applaud that.
The question is going to be now,
this could be the first issue that we actually rally around in the Senate.
It makes total sense to me.
New class.
The question I would have, and look, I'm just a simple hillbilly. You're now you're an experienced veteran legislator. What happens? I mean, does anybody ask, oh, who sent her to this conference? Who paid for that? I actually heard, now is unsubstantiated. Please don't take this as a news story. This is a news tip. I heard the NAIC was a state vendor. Now, you can't take things from state vendors like trips to DEI conferences or awards from DEI groups. It's going to be interesting that, so what happened when I first learned of these issues or heard of them, I actually sent the governor's office a sunshine request, and I asked where she was on June 5th, and they said they had no records. And I said, I understand why, but I will help you. I will do the detective work. So this afternoon, I will be taking a copy of our exhibits, Kelton. Can you package these up in a professional form?
Absolutely.
And I'll be dropping them off to the governor's office. So if anybody else wants to sunshine request the governor's office, say, do you have any evidence, stone cold evidence of DEI, or where this director was on June 5th? Now they will have documents to produce.
Well,
Because I'm a helpful elf like
now
that.
you have all of these other agencies as well that are willing to.
Well,
you've cleared their names.
They
right?
had the Shaggy defense. Wasn't me.
Well, it wasn't them. So
Nope.
you've cleared those departments.
Yes. Kelton, after a long day of detective work, I mean, I want to. I don't think I could even smoke this pipe. This is from the Missouri Meerschaum, and right there around Herman, Missouri. It is but for me, it's totally. It's a workable pipe, but for me,
Is
it's
it really
a
a
fake
corn
pipe.
cob pipe?
Yeah, they set up in the Capitol during that Buy Missouri Day.
Yeah.
And I saw them, and this is actually the Mark Twain pipe.
Replica.
Yeah, they make all kinds, but this is I like the Twain one. They give me this little stat thing here. But seriously, it's going to be interesting to watch over the course of the next year. And I also know a guy who has taken an active role in rooting out DEI. You may have heard of him. He goes by Bailey or Bulletproof Tiger. Just try to run against him. I don't know. It seems to me that if I were tasked with state government, I might wonder why in the hell this person thinks they're so special, right? I'm just a white trash hillbilly. But,
They're just being inclusive.
well, it's kind of exclusive if you're Kelton, though. I mean, it's inclusive
That might be
if
her
you're.
argument. She's just trying to be inclusive. They were coming to Kansas City. And again, I'm playing devil's advocate, right? So I'm completely with you. But her not being here, I'm curious to know what her.
Oh, me too. You and me both, sister.
So stay tuned. Is that what you're telling us? Stay tuned.
I've really never had a problem interviewing any director in this state, going back to Governor Nixon's time when he didn't really have
So
directors
she
talk.
might be your next text. You might be receiving a text from her
Well, let me check.
saying that she actually was
Nope.
speaking against DEI.
It's a text from Carrie Engel, quite different. Well, I'm going to invite her into the show, obviously. I'm not here to say DEI is bad, right? I'm not here to say Kelton's a good person. Maybe she's right and Kelton is a scumbag. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Kelton's lazy and has never worked a day in his life.
Kelton, is he supposed to be your friend?
I consider him a friend.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying Kelton's bad. I'm not saying Kelton's good. I'm just saying that you've said DEI is bad. I'm just saying that how many House members, good Lord, how many senators, the lieutenant governor, the next governor, the current governor, both United States senators. You won't find a Republican member of
You're
Congress.
just stating the obvious, right? That there's obviously a conflict.
I'm saying you are approving a budget right now
Yeah.
to fund DEI. Award-winning funding of DEI. I mean,
Trailblazer.
award-winning DEI. Not just DEI here in Missouri. Award-winning DEI here in Missouri. I mean, we might be the DEI capital of the Midwest.
And I'm curious to know how this impacts insurance for millions of
Well, let
Missouri
me tell you, that's how I
residents.
came to find out about this. There is a war right now on farm mutuals, an absolute war from that department. And I'm just a simple hillbilly. You're an experienced legislator. But it might seem to me that the people obsessed with DEI might be the same as people obsessed with running farm mutuals out of business. If you're willing to go so brazenly far with DEI, it might connect somewhere that you hate rural Missourians to this feverish level that you want to try to run them out of business.
Which is a vast majority of Missouri.
That's what I think. There's also a guy from Bolivar who's from rural Missouri.
That's right.
Now, she was hired by the St. Louis guy, the pervert weirdo. I just think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Kelton, when can we get this printed off?
As soon as we wrap this.
I tell you what, got to pick the kids up, got to drink. Why don't we do it in the morning? Why don't we walk it over in the morning?
I can live with that.
All right, that seems better. So, to wrap it up, at the end of our DEI quest, DEI detectives Scott Faughn and Kelton Turner, we have now found that unfortunately, yes, DEI exists. It exists in the Department of Insurance. Not only DEI exists there, award-winning DEI exists there.
So you can send your future tips to what number?
To what's Kelton? Oh, let's put Sophie's number out there. Send your text to Sophie Shore at. Okay, there is also a few other things going on besides this big television event. The Supreme Court's meeting this morning took oral arguments on whether or not this abortion thing should be on the ballot. Okay, I'm so interested to see because I love talking to you because you just kind of say what's on your mind. There's not a lot of BS in your takes. I think the IP process needs to be tightened up.
I think a vast majority of Missourians think so.
I think even the existing laws, I felt like, and my legal knowledge.
So are you talking about? And so here's where
Yeah.
we might differ. There's a difference between the IP process and ratification, right? So when you're talking about the IP process, gathering signatures is part of the IP process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like personally that's pretty tight. You fill out the documentation, you file it with the Secretary of State's office, you get your signatures. So you might want to do something like disclosing who's funding you or having to disclose or truth and transparency in the ballot language,
Sure.
when it comes to signatures. But I think part of the concern and the debate has been in the legislature is the ratification of those ballot
I think
initiatives.
there's two things, though.
So just
Yeah,
to be clear, we were talking about
Well, I guess I would talk about two different things from a different angle. One, in the existing laws we have, they were relatively tight. And
as
clean,
far as gathering signatures.
well, and how you go about what the language can be. Then you
Okay.
went in with Clean Missouri, the Supreme Court widened that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You could put multiple subjects in it, and I think good lawyers could disagree, but I do feel like, just as my white trash opinion, been to court far more times as a defendant than anything else. So I do think when they let Clean Missouri go on,
Yes.
I thought that it loosened it up. And now saw Judge Limbaugh take a step to tighten it.
Yes.
There were two rulings, one by Judge Walker. I mean, Jay Ashcroft's ballot language it's one of those things where it was so pro-life, it probably didn't help the pro-life cause. It was so skewed. It's like if you'd have gave about 70% of that, you'd have kept it in bounds. But instead you went way out here and the court kicked it out. And Judge Limbaugh has a very much a procedural, structural thing about how it's kind of nitpicking, right? I'm very interested today to see the Supreme Court heard arguments from Hatfield that said this is just nitpicking, and these are just pro-life people trying to enforce their will on the voters.
Right. Yeah.
And you heard the other side say, no, they're outside the statute. I guess at the end of the day, number one, do you believe that the current law is where the vast majority of Missourians are?
As far as the abortion
Yeah.
issue, honestly, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I don't think that people realize that there already is the life of the mother and the health of the mother that's taken into effect. I mean, especially when you're talking about people that are on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of misconceptions already with what it is and what we can accomplish. And I think the divide actually keeps us from having bigger conversations about what it does and doesn't, because we're already in a kind of an aggressive mindset when it comes to it.
Well, I would
But
say,
it-
but
it's
the aggressive
difficult.
people are the pro-life people hating other pro-life people. I mean, most of the aggression is pro-life people towards other pro-life people. Like, I've watched it, somehow Medicaid's about abortion and congressional maps are about abortion. I really think, to me, I understand about those except about life and the mother things. I think the rape and incest, I bet you, would be something an average Missourian. Number one, average Missourians that I know don't talk about abortion at dinner. It's just
Agreed.
not something people talk about.
Yeah.
But if you did have a hard dart with somebody, I think they'd say, okay, that's you probably should up to some points, or maybe let everyone have an abortion up to a small number of weeks.
So you're
Safe,
saying
legal, and rare.
you're saying that, but does this language actually even do that?
Oh, I
Does
think
it address?
I think what happened is the pro-choice people then, I think, well, if we're going to spend all this money, we're going to push it out pretty. I think this is going to swing the pendulum a little further than where the people are. But I also think, folks, I believe if this is on the ballot, it passes. Am I wrong?
I don't know that they know. Again, it's the big question, because even when you're talking about, when I'm in my district, if I'm talking to people about the life issue, it becomes so much about other things. It becomes about economics. It becomes about all of this
Truth
other
to
stuff.
that, right?
Yes. No. And you, like I said, if I sit down with a group of Democrats, which I've done, and you say, okay, your concern is the life of you're kind of pushing on the issue of life when you're talking about a cat in the middle of the road and not taking the ditch, right? Because you're killing the cat. So if life's important, how come the cat's life? Well, so that's an easy for me to say.
I'm running that cat over.
That's right. My kids are more important to me than the cat. But if that's what your mindset is, we can have the conversation about life. If you're telling me that life is also important to you, so important that you don't want to hit the cat, and you don't want to hurt a horse, right? And you don't want to hurt all of these other animals or creatures, then life obviously is somewhat important to you. So we can have that life issue, talking about life and what that looks like, but is the life issue and what keeps you from having this debate when it comes to a baby, economics? And the vast majority of the time it is. They're concerned about, with people trying to put food on the table and gas in their tanks and just trying to work and to survive, you have all of these other factors that weigh in on that. And so usually, from my conversations, it's fear-based. They don't know how to raise the kid, right? They don't know how to pay for or afford health insurance and all of that other stuff.
I firmly believe most folks that get an abortion are struggling financially. I think, and I'm not saying wealthy people don't get abortions. I'm sure they do.
Right.
But I would say the vast majority. This is just an untrained observation.
Well, those are the topics at the Capitol as well, right? How do we help, those who are, it's the poorest that don't have any choice. The kids that are, subject to just their broken homes, et cetera, that find themselves in these situations. And so, like I said, if we are willing to have a broader conversation, I think we can work out ways to provide wraparound services for those kinds of people or support them. But we're so stuck in the conversation of, abortion that we really don't get to the root of why we're even talking about it or how to talk about it.
To back to the Supreme Court case, though,
Yeah.
I think that I think the pro-life community has no ability to come together and fight this. I think they all hate each other so much
So maybe I'm a little naive to that. Mm-hmm. But again, in my district, if I were to say, okay, this erodes parents' rights, this opens up and undoes the legislation that we passed a couple years ago dealing with transgenders, right, and hormone blocking therapy, because that is reproductive rights, right? Those are the conversations. Those are the conversations that are happening.
If you're a young man and you decide you want to be a young woman, and they snip you, well, that's not reproductive rights. That's kind of taking away your. I mean, that's.
Well, no, but that's the broader sense.
Isn't that the opposite?
Those are the conversations that people are having, because in other states they've seen how some of this language under reproductive rights have bled into what bathroom to use. Sports, men and women's sports, etc. And so it is, based on all the conversations I've had with stakeholders, it is a much broader conversation with this ballot language than just
Have you
life.
seen, though, there's other states that this has been on the ballot. Mm-hmm. It's passed overwhelmingly. Mm-hmm. My gut tells me.
Same language? I haven't done that research.
Do you really think anybody reads the language?
No, that's the part of the problem.
Well, I think that on Amendment 3, there's a lot of money on both. Well, on one side, I don't know if there's any money on the pro-life side of this or the say no. Although I have seen a few signs out. I just think that if
it feels uncompassionate.
Well, I don't even think uncompassionate. I just think the pro-life people hate all the pro-life people. And they almost want to beat them out of the tent to make sure they're not in there. When you say Mike and Connie Searpoy are not pro-life, I just think that's laughably dumb. And I also think if you can't say Connie Searpoy, who founded the Jackson Countyans for Life chapter, isn't pro-life, you're almost like, I don't want to be around folks that are just that obtuse to reality, or just bitter and mean, or just want to tell people what to do. They want folks that'll do what they say. I remember Bill Eichel when he didn't even get a phone call after all the water he'd carried. Then you flip the world around, and their guy gets 23% of the vote, coming from a legacy family. I think the pro-life movement has to decide. I think it would be very healthy for the folks in the pro-life movement to maybe talk to a pro-choice person, try to persuade somebody else to come into the tent, as opposed to shoving people out of the tent. I just don't think they're in any way to put on an effect. And if they do, and I'm wrong, good. I actually think this amendment is too far. I think the current law is too far for folks. I think most folks would want an exception for some rape and incest stuff. They'd want a little bit more.
Well, that's the position
compassion.
of Trump. That's the position of Holly, right?
I think
And
that's the
so-
position of most Missourians that don't talk about abortion at dinner is safe, legal, and rare. I'm not sure it's that much different than Bill Clinton. They would like to have a few exceptions, but they would be generally pro-life. Make it hard to get an abortion, but in certain cases, use some understanding. I think that's where most Missourians are. Probably. I think this law is going to take them further than where they are. But I think if it gets on the ballot, I think it passes, and I think that's why all this effort is going in to keep it off.
Well, like I said, I think you have two vacuums, so to speak. One in Jeff City, and then the average person doesn't know that the pro-life movement, they wouldn't
Sure.
know they don't know what you're
Yep.
talking about.
That's probably right.
So for the average person, again, you kind of have to think in context of just the person that's putting gas, going to work every day and trying to keep up with their kids. That's where the big rub is. And and honestly, Scott, I think that's where the big rub is in general with even the governor's race, right? Some of these races, some of the stuff nationally is the disconnect. They feel the disconnect between the reality of what they're thinking and hearing and what goes on in the vacuum of politics. And so that's where a lot of the frustration is. It's not we're crafting the language, we're crafting the narrative, but there is a whole nother narrative out there that people are having that kind of falls on deaf ears. So
I definitely think there's an inside and outside game, right?
Yeah.
On the inside game, it is hard for me to see this crew of people that have such hate for each other coming together and organizing anything.
and that's, like I said, I think in an echo chamber.
Then an outside thing, I think you're going to have, if the pro-life folks put together $1 million, it's going to be impressive. And the pro-choice people have 6 or 7 and probably more to message this thing. And I guess where we would differ is my gut tells me that this passes. Regular folks who are generally pro-life are like, I don't know if I'm this pro-life. Then the pro-life people are going to put something else on the ballot, right? And then they might be like, well, okay, I'm not this far. I don't really think abortion policy is probably best served by the IP process, but I don't think the Missouri legislature can moderate it all to get the law to where the folks are. The part that's been frustrating for me was they passed this landmark legislation, really thinking Roe versus Wade would never be overturned.
Right.
I don't think anybody seriously thought that it would be overturned in their lifetime. I didn't. Then Roe versus Wade's overturned. So these triggers kick in. I thought it was a great opportunity. I think the pro-life folks have a great argument. There is a great case to be pro. It's a case that convinced me. But they don't make it to anybody in the middle or anybody that's pro-choice. They just scream at each other. And I think I would say even folks that are pro-life, but moderately so, feel like sometimes the pro-life message is just a little coarse, right? I don't think anybody really is thrilled to have an abortion. I just don't think it's a thing about some freak on Twitter. But in reality, I know a couple of women that have had abortions, and it is not something it is happy. It was a very sad, traumatic thing. They've never forgotten. Now, I don't know if it's right. I don't get in people's lives and know if it's the right decision or not, but I know this was something very sad that they approached.
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation to have and one that's necessary to have. But I also think, even using the vernacular of an abortion, when you could deliver a child, in the case of a mother, the health of the mother, a lot of that is, preterm delivery. And so we've kind of even adopted that vernacular of it being an abortion when the baby's, just delivered early, and obviously is not going to survive. But I think some of the viewpoints with the conservatives is, at least for me, I'll speak just for myself, is the fact of the matter is, doesn't seem like that's humane either. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So how do you have these conversations that or be willing or be seen?
I love
willing
your
to
perspective
have
because
these-
3 years ago, right, you would have been a person who's living your life, busy, had opinions like we all do, but now you're actually writing laws. And I just think the fact that you've went from, I guess, being a normal Missourian to one actually writing laws for all Missourians in a very quick span. And when you're in the Missouri Senate, you can impact anything you want. I think it's such an interesting perspective to have. If you were talking to someone who was indifferent about abortion or even maybe moderately pro-choice, how would you convince them of your perspective?
So, like I said, I try to have these conversations with people. In fact, I have
Yeah, you actually do, but I think you're one of the rare ones.
I have a tendency to want to go to the people that I disagree with the most, simply because
That's probably how we became friends.
I like your detective work. Simply because if I can understand the perspective, one of my favorite quotes is, "What is knowledge but the slow unwinding of your blindness?" Greg Razor and I would have these conversations, and it's help me understand your world perspective so that we can kind of build a bridge to both realities. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand the perception of someone else that you disagree with, you're never going to find a bridge to where you want to go. And so when I have those conversations with them, okay, again, how important is life to you? When you're talking about the birth of a baby or a child, that is hard for me to wrap my head around. The fact that you don't, you're pro-choice. Again, in the sense of human dignity and the graphicness of that process,
Mm-hmm.
but yet you care about animals. So fix my disconnect. You're caring about the life of an animal, a fish, all of this other stuff, but the dignity of a human life is an exception to that. So when you're able to have those kinds of conversations and say, okay, so what are the indicators of those fear? What is pressing into your worldview? Like I said, vast majority of time it's economics, it's some of these other factors that really aren't even in the context of life, the decision of life. So how do we as government officials start to have those broader conversations to be able to say, okay, how can we not just say heck no on this, but we can help people feel a little bit of breathing room,
Mm-hmm.
so where they can have the ability to make a different decision. And so I love the pregnancy resource centers. I think are amazing, where they help take care of, you see them a little peppered across the state, where they work with the families for 18 months or something. So it's not just, okay, once you have the baby and you're done. They help them with diapers, they help them with clothing, they help them with resources. And so seeing those kind of programs where that gives the person the little bit of breathing room that they might need to feel like, okay, I'm not just doing this on my own, I think is one of the many solutions that might be part of the resolution to a lot of the conflict that we feel, the tug of war between each other.
All right, give me some predictions here. If this goes to the ballot,
Yeah.
you think it fails?
I am not going to say no. No.
I agree. I think it passes.
No, I do not want it to pass.
But I'm saying, what do you think actually happens?
No, I think that look, I always work from the viewpoint of positivity, and I think that the one benefit in all of this is these conversations that are often pushed aside because they're uncomfortable.
If you dreamed of a world where the pro-life people decided, okay, you need to be out front, Mary Elizabeth Coleman needs to be out front. I think it's just common sense. Women need to be making the pro-life case. It is far more persuasive than any man. I think,
Well, it's difficult when somebody stands up and tells you, you don't know what it's like. The men are taking kind of the charge of it when you're the woman who's had 5 kids and you understand the weight of trying to raise, a family. But
I'm with you.
I'm agreeing with you.
I just think that I personally think when men talk about abortion, it is very easy for them to come off condescending. I think it's very easy for them to come off in a way that's not. I think that even to other men are like, ooh, that seems a little heavy there. But I think a woman's a much better messenger on that.
You are seeing, though, a movement where the men are the ones who are starting to step up and saying, look, I want to care for, the child. I want to be a part of the decision-making process. There is a little bit of a trend.
I get what
an
you're saying,
uptick.
but I just think as far as if you're going to put someone on television to make the pro-life case of the people of Missouri, I think a woman starts off. Now, there are some men who are better than women. If they're a poor communicator as a woman and a good communicator as a guy. But I just think if it were you or Cinder Eigel, I think you have a much better chance of persuading people as a woman. You
Right.
start off better. And Bill's a good communicator, but I just think you start off better. My prediction is none of that will happen, and it'll pass. Now, what do you think the court's going to do? I thought it's so funny. You know, Lincoln Huff catches grief from some of the real ardent pro-lifers. If it wasn't for him putting in the budget a new circuit judgeship in Cole County, Chris Limbaugh would have never ruled on this. So it's interesting how I wonder. You could send your Missouri Right to Life Champion Award to Lincoln Huff. You can just drop it off here at the office. I'll get it to him. But I wonder, do you think the Supreme Court holds this up or puts it on the ballot?
No, that's the million-dollar question.
But I think there's an element of, I believe the people that signed that have no idea what this is about. I think they wanted abortion. I think they wanted to vote on abortion.
The people who signed it, all the petition signers.
I think the
Because
overwhelming
if you
majority
walk
of
up-
people, they didn't read all these little clauses.
No.
They just says, do you want abortion to be legal? Do you want
No,
it to
no,
be on
no.
the
It
ballot?
wasn't presented. Honestly, I'm going to disagree with you there.
No, tell me.
If they walk up, because I was there, I saw many of them as you just went in and out of stores. So
I'm from Southeast Missouri, so the IP process totally excludes us. It's almost like for the Department of Insurance, just totally doesn't care about rural Missouri, or they care to screw us. IP process says North Missouri, Southeast Missouri, we don't care.
concurrent majority resolution, ratification. Just plug,
See, I think
plug
it
in
should
for
be
that.
harder to change the Constitution. Maybe not
That's fine.
impossible, but it should be harder.
No, I do. So going back to your original, for people to walk up and say, "Hey, are you in favor of reproductive rights for women?" Right? Well, I wouldn't even say no to that. But
To me, that just means abortion.
No, but to your average person who's just, well, yeah, that's common sense, right? A woman should be able to, have rights to her own body in that regard. And
I
so
will disagree
even
with that. It's
pro-choice.
so funny. Usually when we talk about things, either I move a little bit or somehow end up agreeing with at least part of what we said. I think I give Missourians more credit. I think Missourians signed that petition because they wanted abortion on the ballot. They wanted to vote. They wanted to open up and have more rights to choose.
So as you're
That's
walking,
now there are 380,000 of them. There's 6 million Missourians. But
Right.
those 380,000, the vast majority of them, in my opinion, signed something that they thought was going to make abortion legal.
I think that's not. Maybe depending on what area of the state that you're in, but I've had people reach out to me and say, "Look, I signed that." You're walking in the store with your kids in your hands, right?
I never signed
You-
petitions.
you
If I
are
knew, I
never-
signed John Lamping's name.
Amen. So you're distracted by just trying to do your thing. So somebody walks up to you and says, "Hey, are you in favor of women having reproductive,
Just
choice
don't
over their
sign
body?"
that stuff. I don't sign any of that stuff.
No,
None of it.
I
If I do,
agree.
I put a fake name. I signed Kelton's name a few times.
That could be the next petition.
I'm with you on that, but I give Missourians a little more credit than you do. I think that the vast majority of that 380,000 signatures, I think they connected this somehow. They were doing something that would make abortion access.
Okay, so you have different levels then. So you do have those people because I've heard from them. Look, I was just well, of course that's common sense.
Did
Sign
you
the
just
petition.
sign stuff coming out of the grocery store? I don't.
No,
Me
never.
neither. Did you?
Especially, but you're
3 years ago, did you just sign stuff?
No.
Me neither. I'm just stubborn, though.
But
That's the
I'm
reason
weird
they don't
that
wanna-
way.
The reason they don't want to make you get signatures in every congressional district is Southeast Missouri. We don't trust the government.
well, South
I-
Missouri. Hello.
Well, you all always sign the petitions. I don't tell the government where I'm living. I don't sign anything for the government that I don't have to. And I'd be real skeptical if some old boy came up to me and wanted me to sign something with my address on a government document. Psh, no, not happening.
I agree with you.
Don't care what it's for.
There's different levels, though, is what I'm saying, right? You
Flat Doug, he'll sign your stuff. I'm not doing it.
What?
I know, it's a Doug Beck cutout. Isn't it cool?
Okay, that's funny.
That's pretty neat. When I don't have a guest, I usually just talk to Flat Doug. So I guess the part of disagreement is I do think people knew they were doing something with abortion, and I think
And I'm not.
if they vote on it, I think they'll vote on it because they'll put a moderate face on it. I think this IP is a little further than moderate. I think the public won't like what they get, and we'll have this fight every 2 years. It'll probably help the Republican Party, frankly, if this is on the ballot and passes.
So I'm not disagreeing with you as far as the petition, right? Just to be clear, I'm just saying there was an element of people just trying to get out of my face, so you're kind of in my face, and it wasn't sold as this is going to potentially erode parents' rights.
Right to carry could have said the same thing.
Yes.
Shouldn't be on the ballot because they just signed stuff when they were leaving Chinooks. They didn't
Right,
read it.
right. That's all I'm saying. It was a contributing factor.
I think the court today, if I had to guess, is going to lean because they've historically used trust the public to read this for the signatures. That's generally how they've gotten out of knocking these off. Plus, I think this is kind of last minute, and I think if I had to guess, I think the court puts it back on. Now, the only thing that changes that, and I think Chris Limbaugh deserves a lot of credit for this.
Oh, yeah.
Chris wrote that ruling. Pro-choice lawyers, I know, have complimented the quality of the ruling. I don't read rulings, but I do know people, and I trust, and I know that they're not just folks that loved Chris or any of that. They complimented the quality of the decision, and they also complimented him that he put it out on Friday. He put it out in time to have a hearing by a reviewing court. And I thought that was... Now, Chris, the Limbaughs are some of the most pro-life people. They're from Cape, which everybody in Cape's pro-life. I respected the fact that he could have just put this out on Tuesday when it was too late to do something about it. Instead, he put it out on Friday and let them take it to the Supreme Court.
Well, that's
and
good,
I respect
that's
that.
good governance, right?
That's statesmanship.
Right, and I say that all the time.
It was
And
a
again,
really mature thing he did.
Yeah.
And I think even as a pro-life person, I really regard. It's nice to hear other people compliment the work of a judge or something like that. They maybe don't even agree with his outcome, but they thought, well, reasoning was sound. I like the fact that he put it out when he did to give them the weekend to try to set up today. Thought that was classy.
Well, again, I'm always going to be pro-life. I think, I have a special needs son. There's a harsh reality to that kind of life, having, children with disabilities and things like that weigh heavily on people's minds also as they kind of come forward. But I do think that in order to move people to a more pro-life stance or worldview, you have to be willing to have more of a broader conversation about what brought them to that place and how to take away some of those concerns and fears so that they can be more pro-life, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the cat is more important in most people's minds than the baby. And so how do we help them feel like, they can move this way?
So you think the court's going to keep this off the ballot?
No.
I think they're going to put it on the ballot.
I'm not saying that.
You think you're going to lose at the ballot?
I'm going to not
I
take
think
a
the thing's
gamble
going
on
to
that.
pass. Oh, speaking of gambling, Kelton runs an illegal gambling operation because all these conservatives that say
You're
liberty.
still calling him your friend?
Oh no, it was my idea. It's been very popular. There's a group of Republicans that liberty, freedom, but no, you can't bet on the Chiefs. And I'm like, what about liberty and freedom? What the hell? So Kelton, we've just run our own sports book for a couple years now. No one ever says
Do you
anything.
cross over Kansas? Is that what you're telling me?
We're not that energetic.
Illinois?
No, we pretty much just do it right here.
So why do we need a ballot initiative?
I'm with you. We need fewer cops. That's what we need.
No. Let's not. No.
We just need fewer people harassing us. More cops for everyone else, less cops for us. Right, Kelton? I'm for that.
I would love to corner the illegal sports betting market.
Okay, so what is the line on Boston College still?
I believe it's still 16.5.
So you're familiar with gambling, right?
No.
You got a casino right there across the state line in Jobland.
There's a line of demarcation.
Really? But it's funny how the casino's like right on the line. I mean, you could spit in the
You are
Missouri.
not going to get me on TV to say yes.
No, I'm just saying where the casino is in Joplin, right?
I've passed it a few times.
Well, it's right there on the state. It's kind of funny to me. It's right there on the state line, as close to Missouri as they can get it.
It's not in Joplin. It's across the state lines. But yeah.
Is it like West Joplin or what's that town?
Yeah. Well, you have one in just across the line from Seneca, and then you have some across from Joplin in Kansas. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to bet
Oklahoma.
on Missouri
Sorry,
has to win by 16.5. So they have to win by 17, which is a pretty healthy number against a ranked team coming into Furrow this weekend. Kelton always takes Mizzou and gives the points every time. It never fails. I'm a little more judicious. Kelton thinks the Mizzou will win and win by more than 17 or more. I'm going to say Mizzou wins, but not by 16.
Who are they playing against?
Boston College.
They are playing against ranked Boston College.
Okay. So,
hypothetically, if sports betting were legal, Would you bet Mizzou wins by 17?
I'm always going to go with the state.
It's homer time again
That's
here.
true. Sorry.
Mayhew
That's-
was Don Mayhew was the same way, kind of. He homered it a little bit. Had a great time last night at the 30 under 30 event. We roasted John Patterson. What a great guy! Thank you so much to the new speaker. We raised money for the Jefferson City Rape Crisis Center. I'm excited. Casey has I got people to give for the QR codes, but then some folks just wanted, like Jamie Berger's like, I don't do that. He's put $100 in the thing. Casey has the jar of money, so nobody rob her car. Well, Kelton, you were the last person in that car, so if the money's gone, I think we're all going to point the finger at.
Sports betting. You're trying to double or nothing.
Yeah, you're gonna take the donation money and double it this weekend on football, and then back. So we're gonna do that, but it was a cool night. I love seeing Steve Ellman came over from St. Charles County. Buddy Cardetti was there. I kind of thought Chad Perkins stole the night. I thought he was great. So it was so funny. The first person was supposed to be Cindy O'Loughlin, who is so good at roasting people. I mean, I think it comes off like she means it, which is even funnier.
Yeah.
She gave Bill Eigel new pronouns. I don't know if I can even say them on here, Kelton. But so she had COVID, or she faked COVID, I think. So Searpoy read her jokes.
Did it come off the same?
It was even funnier because Mike Searpoy's there. His whole head's turned red, reading off her things. And I'm like, this
Was it handed to him prior, or did he get it as he was?
It was handed to him when he arrived at the venue.
Okay,
so
that's even funnier.
Like 20 minutes before. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was salty.
No time to rewrite.
Oh my God. It was like, something like, speaking of chicken shits, Jay Ashcroft couldn't be here. It was just, I mean, it was, I'm going to tell you right now, I got more respect for Drew Damp, who I might have thought had a hand in writing this. That material was on fire. But we had, but I thought Chad Perkins come up, slayed it, was outstanding. Wiley Price was there. I love Wiley.
This is really like a talent hunt, is what it is.
If it was a talent hunt, I'm sure. I think
I'm
Chad
just saying,
won it.
Cindy, right?
Yes.
I mean, these are untapped talents and gifts that.
Yes.
Is that another director?
It was actually one of your colleagues asking me if I could send them the exhibits, which I will. I will absolutely provide you the exhibits of our DEI work. I view it as the public good, so it's in the public space. So yes, I'm happy to send you our exhibits.
I'm already here though, so I think
Yes.
I'm first dibs.
I think that's fair, because I mean I've heard people say there's no DEI. I've heard them say that. Mizzou got rid of DEI. The conservative watershed that is Mizzou got rid of DEI. But not only did you just fund
They
DEI,
thought you were on the hunt, so Mizzou got rid of it simply because they
well,
heard
Troy knows what's up. I mean, you ain't getting my joy. But it is interesting that not only is there DEI in the state, there is a award-winning DEI. Creme de la creme DEI. Trailblazing DEI. No, I thought Perkins did great. So also 30 under 30 folks, you know one of them, Zeke.
Yes.
One of 30. You're gonna get this in the mail. John Combest's book, his stalking, harassment, internet trolling. John Combest, if you've ever, do you go to his website in the morning?
Yes.
It is the best culmination of state news. I respect John so much. And he kind of tweaks some of the headlines to make them more funny, which I like. Chris Kosh used to complain about that, and I was like, oh, hell. It's not that big a deal, right?
More clicks.
Well, I think so. Plus, I have a similar sense of humor to John. So if John thinks something's funny, I probably will too.
I probably need his number, so when I do another op-ed, I can just, go with his.
Oh, you should
go with
definitely pick
title.
his brain on op-ed. So about once a year, he'll write a series or something, and it is hilarious, and it's all funny because it's true, but it always has some good advice in it. I always like to thank our sponsors here. Appreciate the folks at United Fiber allowing us to be here. I think Jim's in town today. I'm trying to track him down. And also the Courtyard by Marriott. If you're going to take your family to bring them to town, where are you going to put them up at?
That courtyard.
Well, yeah,
Marriott,
of course.
obviously.
She knows what's
yes.
up. Interesting day. I guess we'll know sometime this afternoon what the Supreme Court's
Yeah,
going to do.
you need to. Yep.
Was it 2 o'clock?
And we'll be right. So just for the sake of a gamble, right, and a bet, you're betting that it stays on the ballot.
Well, right now it's off. I saw the Secretary of State who, wow.
You're gonna.
No one's crashed out harder than him.
You think that they're gonna go ahead and
David Spade of Secretaries of State. I think the court puts it back on the ballot. I think
I'll take the opposite position.
I think they fall back on trusting the people signing. I
Yeah.
think that when they've wanted to sidestep some of these issues, or when they wanted to put something back on the ballot, that's however it got there. That's how it went. I think you've got probably three judges on there that would lean
So the big question
pro-choice,
is,
couple pro-life.
does it end with that? Does
Huh?
it end? If it goes on the ballot, do you think it will ever get challenged again?
Well, I think the last day to put something on the ballot or take something off is today.
Right.
So I think whatever happens, I think the court will probably rule the Secretary of State has to put it on there, because I assume he's going to try to fight.
Well, I'm just talking
That.
about future, and I think that's what you were implying, though. Every
No, I
2
think
years.
the pro-life people will come back, and I think they'll make. I mean, look, I think this is a little further out than where the public is. I think the current law is a little further the other way than where the public is. So I think the pro-life folks will come back. It'll be a great year for the Republican Party. They'll all it's like anything. When you're out, like when the two Senate seats, the one in Lee's Summit in Springfield, right? I think if Donald Trump's president, the Democrats have a great advantage to win those two state Senate seats. If Kamala Harris is president, I think that is a big hill to climb for the Democrats in those two Senate seats. I think when you're on the outs, you have more fired up, and
More engagement.
I think that unfortunately the best thing for the pro-life movement is the best thing that's for any movement is to have a boogeyman and be on the hunt. The worst thing for any movement is to get what you want, whether it be it you couldn't have shot a BB gun through the state capitol rotunda when the doctors were wanting medical malpractice reform. There were white coats everywhere. You couldn't have shot a spit wad through the rotunda and not hit a white coat. Now you can't even get a doctor of the day. You have to get a doctor of the week or something, doctor of the month. It just is when you're wanting something and you're changing, you have more vigor, and I think it'll ultimately be a good thing for the Republican Party. But I really would love to see, because I actually like Susan Klein a lot and I respect her, and the scoreboard of the pro-life laws that she's passed. I think she deserves a lot of credit for what she's done. I hope as a pro-life community they might start trying to, instead of just being so insular focused, reach out and bring some new people into the tent. And I think they're out there. I think there's a great case to be made to be pro-life. It was a case that was made to me and convinced me.
And I think the research on women who have had abortions, again, we haven't even tapped into some of that, right? To educate women on some of the lifelong ramifications of just the mental health that comes with it. And you spoke of that earlier in the interview. So, yeah, no, I agree with you.
It'll be an interesting time. I do think if I really think it'd be important that, let's say the court keeps this off the ballot, and this goes on for 2 more years. Instead of focusing on procedures and changing the IPs and trying to run around little tick-tacky decisions and stuff, I think the pro-life movement would be very well served to actually just start messaging about why they're pro-life and why other people should be pro-life. I think that is I've not heard much of that in the last few years. I've heard a lot of screaming at other Republicans for not being pro-life enough. I've not heard a lot of going out and saying this is why you should be pro-life. And I hope maybe this is a getting this close to the edge, maybe wake some folks up. I don't even know. To me, I don't think it's real to pass an exception bill in the Missouri General Assembly. I don't think you could pass the Donald Trump position in the Missouri General Assembly. I do think you could change the messaging and maybe convince more people that the current law is a good law and the law that should stay on the books. And we'll see. I'm more pessimistic than you are.
Well, like I said, I think even having just the broader conversation to help people, just to disarm the conversation enough, the topic enough to where you can actually have an impact. Because I think right now it's so difficult.
It's got to be led by Republican women.
Yeah.
I just, the men can do so much, but if you're really talking about messaging it, I just personally don't think you can message it effectively from a man. I just don't see it. Now maybe there's things I don't see, but I do think you've got to have folks like yourself, like Sandy Crawford, like Cindy O'Loughlin. I mean, why is Mary Elizabeth Coleman so high profile? Because she gets on the abortion issue and she's good at telling people why they should be pro-life. Mm-hmm. I think a bigger dose of that and a little less dose of the finger wagging would be a good thing. But we'll see. Thank everybody for coming out last night. We had a hell of a crowd. I sure appreciate it. Very grateful. We'll get the QR code up. Kelton, you've got that digitally, right?
I do.
Can you send that to me and we post that online? So if you want to get on, use this QR code. I guess we can even put the link up. I guess that would make more sense now, wouldn't it? I say that out loud.
That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, good call. We'll put the link up this afternoon. Join us in donating to the Rape Crisis Center. They do great work. They are good folks here locally. I appreciate the speaker. Appreciate him picking such a good charity. I appreciate everybody that came out. Searpoi in lieu of the fake COVID. Cindy O'Loughlin. I mean, can you believe all the things? She should have said a bear attacked her or something.
I will tell you something about Cindy. She is not somebody who shies away from work or engagement. So I'm going to just say that.
You think it was real COVID?
I do think
Who gets real COVID?
I don't know that it's real COVID.
In 2024, who gets actual COVID?
I'm just going to say it's not like Cindy to back down from anything.
Oh no, she was sick, but somebody said it was COVID, so I just grabbed onto that. Wiley Price, love seeing him last night. Chad Perkins stole the show. Mary Elizabeth Coleman, always fun. Quentin Lucas, he's the one that bailed, so we had probably the best jokes about him. I told a joke about how.
So if you bail, you get more jokes.
Oh, of course, yes, totally. Ask around Quentin about the sex addiction joke I told about you. But I was like, it's tough being mayor of a big city, especially if you're a liberal, democratic city. You come into a staunchly Republican group of legislators in Jeff City, but you can always say, I'm not St. Louis. And then I was going to say that, the truth is Lincoln Huff now, if the Senate Appropriations Chair, it should be easy to go in his office and ask for money because you can say, well, I'm not St. Louis. And Lincoln now can add himself to the thousands of Missourians this summer that were mugged by a St. Louisan.
Really?
I was talking about Wassinger.
All right. Okay,
Enough reliving our jokes on last night. Thank you so much. We'll be back here tomorrow. Kelton, we do this at 11 o'clock tomorrow?
We sure can.
Oh, my man. Rising star in the Republican Party, David Castile, will be here joining us tomorrow at 11. And we will see you Sunday for This Week in Missouri Politics.